start by acknowledging my panelists, Mr. Padi, Mr. Menon, and Mr. Sridhar. Thank you very much, sir. I'm really privileged and honored to be part of this panel. Um, the other one is Flame Business School, and it is always a privilege to talk to students. Smita ma'am, Shilpa ma'am, Mr. Gupta, Mr. Unyal, and Mr. Chakravarti. Um, and sorry if I missed any names, but that's not by any intention. And of course, Vidhi and Sanjana, thank you very much for that beautiful introduction, and all my dear students. A lot has been said about the technology, what's going to change, what kind of jobs are we envisaging in future. Let me begin by actually telling you a story of how HR and labor relations actually contributed during the pandemic situation, and post that, what are the plans that we have. And what I'm going to talk about is specifically from the perspective of my own company that we did. But before I go into that story, let me talk about my views on what has happened in last 7 8 months. So um, let me divide that into you know uh, pre-lockdown, during the lockdown, and post-lockdown. Once we start accepting it as a fact that this is a new normal, and now we need to work likewise. So my first reactions when this entire thing started, uh, and I'm referring to the lockdown which happened. And prior to lockdown, of course, everything was very normal. We were thinking that the pandemic is still in China, it will not come to India, and suddenly it hit India at some point in time. And then 23rd of March happened, and the government didn't had anything else or no options but then to really lock down the entire country. And that was a most shocking event probably I would have ever imagined that could happen. My first reaction to that was, it was a ego slap which was unleashed by nature on all of us, and the nature was trying to tell us that you know uh, take whatever you want. You have to be conscious. You have to be in tune with the nature. You have to be consuming whatever is required from the nature. And if you see some of the photographs during the lockdown, especially a city like Delhi, where we talk about a lot of pollution, and you will not believe the kind of photographs that you see there. Um, you will suddenly start seeing birds there, you know, and that's something which you have never seen in Delhi. So the point that I'm trying to say here is something happened which all of us were not at all ready, and then suddenly the entire country was locked down. Um, what has exactly happened as a result of that? That created an impact when we talk about businesses. And all of us, of course, were trying to adjust to the new normal. We started working from home, especially for me. It was demystifying a lot of beliefs. For example, manufacturing people cannot work from home. That was the most important belief that we had, and we started demystifying everything suddenly. Um, the efficiency of the people working from home suddenly increased because everyone was so focused on coming out of the situation and ensuring that the business still runs. And I'll come to the story that I'm talking about. But um, what was the impact as a result of this? Mr. Padi talked about it, Mr. Menon talked about it. 25 years back, and it has really taken us that far. Um, Left a very huge impact on livestock, retail, wholesale, which is non-food industry or logistics for that matter, gems and jewelry, tourism, hospitality. Everything was still struck, and the recovery period for all of these industries is going to be long term. And as we speak, a lot of people lost their jobs. You would have seen a lot of migrant workers moving from the city to their hometowns, and there are multiple stories there as well, where what happened exactly to those people while they were returning back. Um, what were the headwinds when we started talking about this pandemic was the sectorial growth within automotive, banking, FMCG. So if you see automotive, suddenly after the lockdown was over, the sale of automotive has picked up in the last 3 to 4 months. If you see the numbers, Maruti alone has sold more than 170,000 vehicles in a particular month. And then it's still doing very well. In fact, all the automobile companies are doing well. Essential reason, 18% motorization rate per thousand inhabitants. And therefore, after the pandemic, everyone wanted to have their own vehicle so that they can travel alone. Um, every year, we are adding more than 3.2 million vehicles on the road, and this is going to increase. Banking, I heard Mr. Pai talking about it. Only 41% of the population in India is banked, and which means almost 60% of the population is still unbanked, and that is going to create a lot of jobs, as you mentioned rightly, sir. FMCG, again, giving you a perspective here that about 135 billion is estimated growth in FMCG in next 2 to 3 years because of the packaged food, which has increased as far as the consumption is concerned. Healthcare, almost $90.4 billion in healthcare expenditure. Um, Essential reason, zero point 0.9 hospital beds per thousand population across the India, and there are zero point 0.7 physicians per thousand population in India. ITES, of course, it is going to set to increase 3.5 million new employments are going to be created as a result of the data and digital technologies, which Mr. Menon already mentioned about. Around 2.4 billion investment by the venture capitalist is already there waiting for it at 38% share that we have currently in the exports as far as India is concerned. As far as India, almost 99 plus operational SEZs are already there in India, and that is set to increase. And coming about manufacturing, almost $183.7 billion. That's the export that India generates. All of this has had a big impact in last 7 months, and all we are trying to do is trying to understand the impact of it and how much time is it going to take to really bounce back and coming on to the track that like we had prior to the lockdown. So having said that, there are a lot of silver linings. What is winning? Of course, the digital products are winning. Gig economy. You have seen already how Uber has again gained a lot of ground. Airbnb, pay per usage kind of a situation where stock market again investors, alternative medicine, spiritual science, and multiple other areas which we never thought have started gaining their grounds, and that has really started becoming like a new business. So coming back to what exactly HR has done as far as the lockdown and the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic is concerned, I just wanted to narrate the story of how John Deere started their operations. As far as India is concerned, we have a technology center in Magarpatta city, Pune, which houses more than 3,000 plus engineers. And we have factories in Pune, we have factory in MP, Devas, we have a factory in Punjab, and we have a parts distribution center in Nagpur. Now, everything when the lockdown was declared was shut down for almost 45 days. So, what did HR do during this entire period? One, during the lockdown, we started preparing. We started preparing our grounds that in case if we have an opportunity to reopen our factories, what are we going to do? So we formed a team which was called as incidents response team, and then multiple I would say, sub departments within those departments started working on how are we going to resume our work once the lockdown is over. Now, there was a core team formed. Restarting, of course, was a priority. And there was a plan prepared by each and every department, including administration, including operations, quality, everyone. How are the specific norms related to COVID are going to be verified? How are they going to be audited? What's going to be the situation in our canteen? What's the situation in our buses? Because whatever you say when it comes to manufacturing, you cannot produce a tractor by sitting at home. You can talk multiple things about digital technology. You can talk about multiple things on the data, but when it comes to manufacturing, somebody has to be there on the floor manufacturing those products. So that's true for every manufacturing company that is there. And people started preparing their plan. We started preparing -30, -10, -7 days plan to ensure that we get back on track. In the meantime, there was a team of people which was formed within the HR team to work with the government, to work with the local stakeholders, to work with the employees and suppliers to ensure that they also resume their operations, because only by resuming our own operations didn't make any sense unless and until the suppliers were also making their stride to open their operations. So what as an HR we did is we along with the consortium of industries, we represented our case to the government, saying that we actually collected data for almost 50 plus industries, including our suppliers, in terms of what's going to be the overall revenue loss to the government, what's going to be the tax income loss to the government, what's going to be the export loss to the government. We represented the whole thing. And then we said, these are the rules by which we are going to operate. We also defined the rule book that this is the way we are going to resume our operations. These are the norms that we are going to follow. And we represent our case to Joint Director of Industries. And then finally, we got an approval to start our factories on 5th of May. So this 45 days, the entire HR, admin, IR departments were working with multiple stakeholders to ensure that we get the permissions to start our business. And at the same point in time, once we start, what are the norms that we are going to follow? What are the new normals that we are going to follow within the shop floor? The other one was local stakeholders. This is a very tricky situation. And my friends who are working in manufacturing would understand this, that when you are working in manufacturing, you're in the midst of multiple villages that you are operating into. So there are multiple stakeholders. Every village has a panchayat, and most of your people stay in those local areas. So understanding the norms that they're going to follow as far as quarantining those people was very important. So we made strides. We went to those local panchayats. We called them to our factory. We showed them all the arrangements that we have done to ensure that we take care of the COVID situation. And we had them on our side. And simultaneously, we did multiple CSR activities across those villages, where we started distribution of food packets. We started distributing multiple healthcare devices, multiple PPEs to those people who are working in those particular areas, including a small vegetable shop to a street vendor, because most of our people who are working in our factories will go to these places to buy their essentials. And at the same point in time, we also distributed food to all the standard wage workforce that we had in our factory. We also worked with the local government to ensure that whatever COVID norms which are given by the collector is followed 100%. And of course, extending extraordinary support to our suppliers, going to them. We had a situation in Konkan area where one of our suppliers, his factory was full of water. There was a cyclone which was there, and most of the workforce which was working in that area, and that was a critical supplier for us. And basically, all their homes were actually shaken, and it was broken because of the cyclone. We made sure that we helped them, and then we ensured that the supplies are streamlined within a given period of time. So as a result of that, as a result of concerted efforts from the people, what happened was we could have a year which was one of the best years for us, and that's a great example of how situations can turn in spite of all the odds that we faced during the last 7 to 8 months. We had multiple COVID cases as well. We handled them very well. We extended support to the families of the employees. The most important thing is we have not deducted one single day of salary for anyone as a result of someone who's getting into or someone who's had COVID. We paid them 100% salary as per the government norms, and then extended our support post the government norms as well. So all in all, it's a question of how you really respond to the situation rather than reacting. And we made sure that things get back to normal as soon as possible. What are we going to do post the pandemic? Of course, from an HR perspective, there is a lot of artificial intelligence we are already working or already using. There is something which is called as predictive analytics that we use in HR, where a lot of forces, a lot of factors, a lot of high level algorithms are written in terms of analyzing an employee's tenure within the organization, and is what's the probability of this employee leaving the organization is something that we do through the AI predictive analytics. Chatbots, a lot of we have shared services within the HR. A lot of day-to-day conversations with the employee needs. We are going to use chatbots. There is a recruitment analyzer, R analyzer tool that we have launched, where the shortlisting of the probable employees will be done through the algorithms which are written, and the tool will be able to shortlist the candidates. We started virtual onboarding, so we never stopped our recruitment process. All the onboardings that we have done are through local virtual onboardings. The laptops and all the other equipments were sent to their houses, and we could do the virtual onboarding very successfully. We did our reward and recognition program also digitally. So the program which we used to book big halls, big hotels, where we used to call 500, 600 employees for the reward and recognition function, also has been organized through digital means. Um, so what is my what is my advice to all of you as students is never stop learning and never get bogged down by the situations, because there are always solutions there. You need to be positive. Staying positive is very important, and ensuring that you think differently to have different solutions is absolutely essential. And HR being the central central piece, where it where it gives direction to a lot of other people. You need to be extremely sure about what we are going to do. From a learning perspective, my advice to all of you would be start to follow blended learning model, where 70% of your learning would come from the on the job experience or learning by self. So what do you mean by that? There can be multiple avenues of learning from self. For example, if you do a simple, you know, like a simple research on a particular subject is also learning by self. For example, what is the succession planning methodology that is followed by GE, for example? That can be a good example of how you learn on your own. You do your own research is also learning. So 70% of your learning is going to come from your own way of how you look at learning and how you learn yourself. 20% would come from what you are doing now, which is coaching and mentoring. So you will have you can talk to industry experts. You need to make sure that you build your networks. You need to make sure that you talk to the people who have actually executed a lot of projects, and make sure that you learn from those ideas and those mentoring opportunities. and only 10% is going to come from the actual classroom that you're going to learn. And that too, nowadays learning has a completely different meaning. You can do it on your own pace, you can do it in the way you want. So there are multiple avenues where you can use, like Coursera, for example, offers a fantastic courses on multiple things. But one thing I would like to definitely tell all of you is, and Mr. Menon talked about that, digital and data. Data is going to be the king. And let me tell you a story that 50% of our leaders who are general manager and above, they have started learning Python programming, which means everybody is wanting to know about what's going on and how this data is getting represented, what this data really means for me, how am I going to use this data for making sure that my function works more effectively and my efficiency increases. So please make sure that you do some learning on the data analytics side, even if it is simple Excel. You need to make sure that you learn it to the fullest extent. Um, in the conclusion, I would say, and Mr. Menon also touched upon this career versus job. So I would always give you an analogy of the Maslow's need hierarchy. So when it comes to career, I would like to apply this theory of Maslow's need hierarchy to career as well, where yes, during once you pass out from the college, the first, because it's a need analysis, right? It's a need and it's a motivational theory. So whenever you get out of a college, the first priority for you is getting into a job. And as you get into a job, you go to the next level of need where you would like to. So the first need in Maslow's need hierarchy is, basic needs. So basic need for an individual who is just getting out of college is getting into a job, no matter what kind of job you get into. Now, the next need, which is defined by Maslow's, is safety and security needs. So you'd like to get into something which is much more secure, much more safer. And then you get into societal needs, social needs, where you are looking for recognition, you are looking for a status within the society. So you would like to grow in your career that way. And then, of course, the self-esteem and self-actualization. So that also applies to your career. So I would say that every 5 years, consider yourself as redundant, because if within 5 years, the entire technology would have got changed. As Mr. Party already mentioned, the pace at which the technology is getting changed, you need to ensure that every 5 years you learn new things and you need to upgrade yourself and lock yourself in a room, decide what you want to do, and ensure that you pursue your goals accordingly. Um, in conclusion, I would like to say that all of us have an opportunity to contribute differently and create a future. And let me tell you a story. I was talking to one of our management trainees whom I hired from the XLR, and I was talking to her on her experiences of the way she contributed during the pandemic period, and she was through and throughout working from home, working from the factory to ensure that all the goals that we have for ourselves are getting met. And she said, "I thought this is a lifetime opportunity, and when I grow older, when I get married, I'm sure I have a lot of stories to tell to my children and grandchildren what I did during the pandemic situation." So that kind of situation we have already faced, and I'm sure we have come out of the issue. It's just a matter of time, as mentioned by Menon. Within next 1 year, we are going to forget about this particular situation. But nonetheless, it has taught us a lot. And in conclusion, I would like to um, say what Martin Luther said during his speech to the college students: if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep walking. Thank you very much.